you do with the money I gave you yesterday? And I think American taxpayers are past demanding that answer from Ukraine. What have you done with the money we've sent before we send you any more? Again, we've seen ceasefires get violated very quickly by Ukraine. We're seeing them attack civilian targets. Zelensky is pushing Russia to respond in the hopes that an over-response by Russia will bring the world community to his side. I think he is misjudging not only the patience of Russia at this point, but also whether the world community will embrace him when he's provoking more of a response from Russia.
Zelensky basically said he's not going to honor it. In effect, he said that. But we'll have to see. The hope is that even with the ceasefire, you hope that it will get extended and that there will be a respect for not firing. But, right now he's basically telegraphing the possibility that with the May Day, with the Victory Day parade, that he's going to be, that he intends to send drones on the crowds, on the population. And, you can call that a war crime, and it would be under our existing international norms, but no one's honoring things these days. No one cares. And this is the unfortunate thing. That's why it's not surprising that Russian officials said that if that happens, there will be mass retaliation on Kyiv. And frankly, I think it's overdue.
Think about it. Escalation is needed, in my opinion. As far as Ukrainians are willing to fight, I think Europe will push them to fight. And of course, the industrial complex, especially in Germany, as we can see, is heavily benefiting on that. And also all the huge headlines of 90 billion debt. They say that most people don't really realize where that money goes. Usually, most of it will stay in Europe and go to Europe weapon manufacturing.
All right. How do you think hostility
I mean, it wasn't my first trip. So basically, every the next trip I go, I kind of try to gauge how the region is developing. It's still basically under war, but how infrastructure is being repaired or established. Especially, you can see that obviously in Mariupol, which we visited. This was my fourth time in Mariupol, I think, and it's amazing to see how the city has rebuilt itself. Of course, there are parts of it, especially towards Azovstal, that are in ruins still, and will be for a while. But talking to Donetsk as well, talking to people, let's say this last trip was heavily themed by the Great Patriotic War. So we visited a lot of, let's say, memorials and museums dedicated to preserving the memory. So it was touching. It's kind of surreal, no? In a way, to see, like I mentioned probably several times now, that they're trying to, like the collective West and maybe the fascists in Ukraine are trying to, like, rewrite history or erase that part of history, which is, I'm Slavic, so it's common to us as well. Like my country of back then Yugoslavia liberated itself from fascism. I have very common things with the Russian people, like my grandparents lost their lives fighting, or were taken, or were killed. So it's hard to see this rewriting of history, this erasing of history, this revisionism. But it's great to see in the Donbass that it's still alive and being preserved, and the spirit of it is very much alive.
Right. Now,
let's say, Zelensky's gangsters, as I would call them, they're very corrupt, and it's like a militia within itself. I think some parts of them feel like they're warlords. They just do things with impunity. There's daily videos coming out. The people will say it from propaganda, but it's not. We, as a media collective, we follow obviously a lot of different sources. There's daily videos of this conscription. So it's a thing. I think we're at the point where people can stop saying this is Russian propaganda, this was filmed in Russia or whatever. And it's hard to hide that now. So of course, if you have 3+ years of conscription services pulling people off the streets with impunity, beating them sometimes to death, extorting them for bribes, and it reflects bad on the West, right? Because Ukraine is obviously at the end fighting for European democracy, or something like that they call it.
all right. Now we have to leave.
Matter. Take a listen to what witnesses have been saying.
I was just sitting there in a cafe. There was a terrible noise and someone accelerated incredibly fast. Then people were lying at the side of the road and it just sped up.
Yeah, I'm from Trier and experienced the same thing there. When a driver went on a rampage through the city centre, I didn't witness it firsthand, but I'm from there and I was in the city at the time. Naturally, this brought back memories. I know what it's like. Back then, 6 people were killed in Trier and many others were injured.
I'm a bit shocked at the moment and need to take a moment to process this, because I really feel at home here in Leipzig. This is the city I chose to live in. I'm originally from Brandenburg. I haven't quite come to terms with it myself yet.
Some French news.
Report in UAE has also reported a major fire at one of the oil facilities, raising concerns about the vulnerability of the energy infrastructure in the region. On the other side of the story is 6 small boats which were targeted by the U.S. Forces in the region, were not affiliated to the IRGC. They were civilian boats and vessels which were carrying civilians and passengers and also goods. As a result of the U.S. strikes, 5 people have been killed. Well, this comes as the commander of Hatem al-Anbiya Central Command has actually called on the United States to put an end to its act of piracy. Otherwise, they will face a strong response from Iran. At the same time, the U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, has defended its actions, saying that the United States has the upper hand in the region. And of course, according to CENTCOM, and Apache helicopters were used to target small boats or fast boats, as the U.S. claims they were threatening commercial shipping. Well, this seems to be a justification for underscoring how growing militarization is taking place in Strait of Hormuz. Let's take a listen.
U.S. forces are helping the international community in restoring the flow of global commerce, while the IRGC, on the other hand, is doing everything it can to terrorize and threaten commercial shipping. My operational assessment overall is that the U.S. military has the clear advantage. We have an enormous amount of capability and firepower concentrated in and around the Strait of Hormuz.
Developments come amid escalating sharp rhetoric from Washington. Well, U.S. President Donald Trump has warned actually against Tehran's actions in the region. At the same time, U.S. President has also downplayed Iran's military capabilities. Once again, U.S. President Trump has repeated his old claims that Iran has no air force, has no Navy, and has no radar.
Can't let Iran have a nuclear weapon. We had all new highs, and I said we have to take care of business because we can't let that happen. So we did a little detour, and it's working out very nicely. They have no Navy, they have no Air Force, they have no anti-aircraft equipment, they have no radar, they have no nothing, they have no leaders, actually.
Despite these claims, the IRGC has announced that it has fired warning shots at multiple U.S. vessels in the region in Strait of Hormuz after they ignored Iran's actually warnings. And Iran says these warnings were necessary because they ignored Iran's warnings. And according to IRGC, the presence of naval forces in the region is a breach and violation of established maritime regulations and coordination. According to the Iranian forces, of course, in one of the latest videos shown by the IRGC, actually we are seeing that warning shots are being fired at multiple U.S. vessels, and this video has been released by the IRGC itself. This is unfolding. Such developments are unfolding against the backdrop of a fragile ceasefire. And at the same time, the U.S. so-called Project Freedom, which is designed with the aim of guiding and escorting commercial vessels through the Strait of Hormuz safely, through the coordination and backing of the United States. Well, for now, the Strait of Hormuz remains one of the most vital flashpoints globally, with military activity, economic stakes, and political messaging all converging in a very narrow stretch of water.
Now, Tehran.
Yes, it is legal.
Volotea is the only airline to have made this choice. Transavia chose to cancel flights that had become unprofitable. With the oil crisis, the entire business model of low-cost carriers is at stake.
Into the Emirates, Bahrain, and in Saudi Arabia and Qatar, of course, and as well as in these 3 other countries. The United States has significant assets. U.S. jets are using the bases of these countries. And so the Iranians, and of course Jordan as well, and the Israeli regime, of course. So we're seeing the preparations for another assault on Iran taking place. And of course, we have to keep in mind that without the consent of Qatar, the Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and Kuwait, the United States can't wage war against Iran because logistically it would be just impossible. So these countries are fully complicit, and the continued any assault in the future will be deemed as a joint operation against the Iranian people.
Jeff Bezos. The Amazon founder didn't walk the red carpet, but his wife, Lauren Sanchez Bezos, was pictured alongside Vogue's global editorial director, Anna Wintour, who oversees the event. There had been calls to boycott the gala, which critics see as a gross display of wealth at a time of mounting inequality. New York Mayor Zoran Mamdani skipped the event, saying his focus was on affordability in the city. But financially speaking, the gala was still a success. This year's fundraiser raised a record $42 million for the museum.
Don't go anywhere, we're going to take a very short break.
The UAE announced it was leaving OPEC and another regional cartel which regulates oil output. The move enables the UAE to boost production amid skyrocketing prices for the crucial commodity. Now, Professor Mohammed Marandi again.
The Strait of Hormuz, which includes areas surrounding the Fujairah port in the Gulf of Oman and parts of the Emirates in the Gulf of Oman. So obviously, because of the preparations for an assault against Iran, where Emirati territory is being used, the Iranians have expanded this zone to basically put pressure on the Emirates. So far, Iran has not said anything about this or accepted responsibility. I haven't heard yet. The Emirates has left the Arab-producing oil companies or oil countries, and the antagonism that's growing between the Emirates and these countries is also quite significant. The Iranians have not accepted responsibility. We'll have to wait and see what comes in the hours ahead, but the Emiratis seem to be separating themselves from other Arab countries in the Persian Gulf region as well, and that is going to raise its own tensions. I think the Emiratis want to openly join the Israeli regime in the United States in some sort of alliance, which would be very, very foolish for them.
They did not die, and they are in the custody of U.S. law enforcement. Now, at that point, we saw all kinds of law enforcement descending upon the scene, locking it down, and now, at this point, the area is being declared safe. The security restrictions in the area have been lifted. The individual is in custody. It's worth noting that while the individual apparently did not get close to U.S. President Trump, J.D. Vance, the vice president, his motorcade drove through the area just before the shooting incident took place. And it's also worth noting that there have been a number of attempted assassinations of U.S. President Donald Trump. There were the two famous incidents during his 2024 campaign, The one in Butler, Pennsylvania, where he was shot in the ear. The other, where an individual set up near his golf course at Mar-a-Lago. And more recently, we saw a shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, this important press event where elected officials and individuals in the media gather, was shut down after an individual got through a checkpoint and opened fire at the event. So many are looking on at this incident. There are no clear links to previous incidents at this time, and the scene is now declared safe. We'll soon have more information on who this individual who's been apprehended, what perhaps their motive was.
Approximately 3:30 this afternoon, our plainclothes officers and agents that consistently patrol the outer perimeter of the White House complex identified a suspicious individual that appeared to have a firearm. They called in support from our marked uniformed Secret Service police to make contact with that individual. Upon making contact, that individual fled briefly on foot, withdrew a firearm, and fired in the direction of our agents and officers. They returned fire and engaged. That individual was hit. He's since been transported to the hospital. I have no comments on his condition. I can tell you that at least one, we believe only one bystander was hit by the suspect. That individual, it's a juvenile, did not sustain any life-threatening injuries, but he's also receiving treatment at the hospital. Marked uniforms.
I'd love your reaction to Karen Bass, who says you're exploiting the grief of people in the Palisades.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Karen Bass forgot that she let my house burn down and my parents' house burn down.
Secret Service police to make contact with that.
Washington launched a major operation to guide stranded ships out of the Gulf through the largely blocked Strait of Hormuz. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas R.I.P says Monday's events shows there's no military solution to the crisis. Fragile ceasefire between Washington and Tehran hanging by a thread, as France 24's Tehran correspondent Reza Sayah tells us.
To some people, based on what we've observed over the past 24 hours, it is in serious jeopardy. This is the highest that we've seen tensions escalate, especially in the Strait of Hormuz.
That individual, upon making contact, that individual fled briefly on foot, withdrew a firearm, and fired in the direction of our agents and officers.
hari undi muntu warasiwe hafi ya White House muri Leta Zunze Ubumwe za Amerika. Nakwibutsa ko hashize n'iminsi umwarimu nawe afashwe ari muri hoteli aho Donald Trump yari ari afite imbunda ndetse n'ibyuma. Hakaba hari undi muntu rero warashwe kuri uyu mugoroba muri Leta Zunze Ubumwe za Amerika. Inzego zishinzwe umutekano Secret Service za Leta Zunze Ubumwe za Amerika zikaba arizo zamurashe. Nk'uko ikinyamakuru Fox News kibivuga, the Secret Service confirmed that a juvenile bystander was hit after an armed suspect opened fire near the White House. The suspect was shot by Secret Service officer and is currently hospitalized, while the juvenile is receiving treatment for no life-threatening injuries. Barakubwira ko inzego z'umutekano zamurashe ubu ngubu akaba yajyanywe kwa muganga bakimwitaho.
Forces missiles on the warning shots then reports that 2 commercial vessels in the Strait of Hormuz were on fire, and also reports from the United Arab Emirates that an oil refinery so a lot of conflicting reports, conflicting narratives, but you get the sense that the U.S. military tried to take some action in the Strait of Hormuz. Iranian forces didn't like it. They responded with their own action. At this point, things seem quiet. We'll see what today brings. All of this, of course, happening against the backdrop of more threats and statements coming from Washington, statements from Tehran, suggesting that the likelihood of the war resuming increases.
United Arab Emirates, ibihugu byo mu Barabu bikaba biri gushinja Irani kuba yabiteye aho yasenye ububiko bw'amavuta cyangwa bw'ibitoro byo muri UAE cyangwa United Arab Emirates. Bikaba byabaye mu makimbirane akomeje kujya hagati ya Leta Zunze Ubumwe za Amerika ndetse na Iran ku muhora wa Hormuz, aho Leta Zunze Ubumwe za Amerika ejo zari zavuze ko zigomba guherekeza amato agomba kwambuka mu muhora wa Hormuz.
The pipeline that runs across the UAE, allowing oil shipments to bypass the Strait of Hormuz, which is currently under a dual blockade by Iran and the U.S.
The more that terminal comes under fire from Iran, the less it's an option for ships to pick up anything from that pipeline that runs through to the very opening of the Indian Ocean.
It's not the first time the Iranians have targeted the Fujairah port. There was a similar attack back on March 3rd. But this time, the UAE's defense ministry said Iran also launched 4 cruise missiles at various areas across the country. It said 3 were successfully engaged over the country's territorial waters, while 1 fell in the sea. On Monday, Iranian state TV aired images of the country's navy shooting what it said were warning shots at U.S. destroyers. But Tehran appears to be turning once again against U.S. allies in the region, including the UAE.
And there was the UAE, because the UAE has complicated relationships, I think, is the best way of putting it, with all of its friends at the moment. The Saudis, for example, we know are talking to the Chinese, and they're putting pressure on the Chinese to encourage the Iranians not to strike at Saudi Arabia. So UAE is putting itself in a particularly sort of unique position, and what we don't know is what they're asking for behind closed doors when it comes to US strikes against Iran in retaliation for this.
UAE's energy minister was at a forum where he discussed his country's recent decision to leave OPEC. He said the best-case scenario was that no one would control the Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, flights scheduled to arrive in the UAE were also diverted for what authorities said were active military threats.
This nation has chosen a path towards Europe. Here's France 24's correspondent telling...
Now, of course, I'm not a senior. I'm far younger than a senior. It's true. I feel the same as I felt 50 years ago. I don't know. There'll be a period of time when I don't tell you that. There'll be some honest. I'll say it's not looking good. I have to be careful. If I said, as an example, I'm not feeling well, kid, they put on Donald Trump is not feeling well, because they won't know that I'm using that as just a reference point, and they'll say, listen to this. I'll say, I'm not feeling well. Well, someday I might say that to you, and you'll be the first to know. Actually, I won't have to say it, because you'll be able to see it, just like you did in the last administration. You know, one of the things I said is that we should have, in my opinion, anybody running for president or vice president should take a cognitive test. And no president has ever taken one except me. I've taken 3 of them, and I've aced each one. 1 in the first administration, 2 over here. And whenever they get a little sassy, like, does he still have it? Does he still have what it takes? I say, all right, I'll take another one. And they are hard. There are many people in this room I know that are smart. They're not going to ace them. There are many people standing back there, the fake news media.
Donald Trump ari imbere y'itangazamakuru avuga ati hari abavuga ko nshaje ariko njyewe ndi kwiyumva nk'uko nari imeze imyaka 50 ishize. Ati rero sinshaje kuko ninsaza muzabibona. Agaruka kuri Joe Biden ati nk'uko mwabibonye kubona simbuye.
I just want to say he's amazing. He's done so much. I mean, so much for all of us. I mean, the backbone of this country is small business, plain and simple. And the last guy in office, all we heard is that we were the evil people, we were the bad people, everything else like that. We don't pay our fair share, whatever that's supposed to be. And he made it tough. And this guy, the big beautiful bill, absolutely amazing. You know what I mean? God bless you for letting me get 100% depreciation. It really helps out. And all I can say is this is literally, I mean, I'm a history buff and I know a lot about this White House thing and everything. Literally, he's going to go down as maybe the best president ever. I love this guy.
Wow. We terminate a lot of federal jobs that are unnecessary. And they don't like me for doing it, but a year later they like me because they end up having a much better job, oftentimes in a place where they'd much rather live. You know, they go to the place that they want to go. They're not stuck in Washington or someplace else. And they do much better. And in the end, I mean, I've had a lot of people come up, they say, I was so angry at you, but now I'm making sometimes 2 or 3 times the money in a job that I really like. So you got to do what you have to do. You have to, politically, I don't know, it's good, bad, or indifferent. I think it's probably bad, maybe politically, but in the meantime, I'm in the White House, so maybe it's good. A lot of times, under the last administration, 1 in 4 new jobs was a government job, but since my inauguration, 100%, think of that, 100% of all new jobs have been in the private sector, 100%. We cut a lot of government jobs. And 2 of the 3 new jobs have been in small businesses, but I just want to say, so think of that, 100% of new jobs are in the private sector. Now, to do that, we cut tremendous numbers of governmental jobs. And I feel sorry for everyone, and it's a hard thing to do. Many of those people voted for me, but now they like me because they went out, they got private sector jobs that they like better, and it's paying them sometimes 2 and 3 times more money. So it's worked out the right way.
Perezida Donald Trump ati ubu ngubu ibintu bimeze neza muri Amerika, ati twirukanye abantu benshi mu kazi ka leta, ati benshi baranyanze kandi nta nubwo ari ibintu byiza kwirukana umuntu, ati ariko bagiye hanze bahita babona akazi mu nzego zigenga ndetse babona n'akazi kabahemba amafaranga menshi, bagiye banyanga ariko ubu bose barankunda kandi nawe ibyo byambabaje kubera ko nari nabirukanye bamwe muri bo barantoye.